Hey Longhorn Families, welcome back. Today we're going to discuss a new concept known as area, and I'm going to teach you a little bit about it. So this TEK is TEK 3.6C and TEK 3.6C, excuse me. Basically, what you need to know is I can determine the area of a rectangle with whole numbers of sides, lengths, and problems using multiplication to relate the number of rows times the unit squares. So in this TEK, we are going to be taking a look at some shapes here. We're going to be finding the area of a shape. Now, here's what you need to know that's important. The definition of area. The definition of area is the amount of space inside of a shape. All right, so with area comes a formula. This formula is what's going to help you, especially when you're taking your STAR test. So let's talk about it. So when you see the word area, you automatically want to associate yourself with the formula, which is length times width. All right, so length times width here. That's our formula that we're going to be dealing with today. So you're going to be multiplying the length of a shape times the width of a shape. Remember, length is how long something is and width is how wide something is. All right, so let's take a look at this example here with a grid. So if we take a look at this example, as you can see, I have a grid here. Looks somewhat similar to what we did with multiplication called an array, but this is not an array. The reason why is because arrays, they do not touch. In this case, areas, they do touch. All right, so the way I like to remember how to multiply when using a grid somewhat like this, you always want to look at your key. 1 square is equal to 1 square centimeter, which means when you get your answer will be in square centimeters. Here's how that looks. Here I have my length. Remember, my length is how long something is, right? So this is my length. And then over here, I have my width, basically how wide it is. So I could either count all the squares in this shape, or you can do this concept by simply saying, okay, well, how many do I have going down? I have 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4 going down. How many do I have going across? I already have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, so that means I'm going to be multiplying my length times my width here, which in this case will be 7 times 4. All right, and if I remember my multiplication facts correctly, I know that 7 times 4 in this case will be 28, but not just 28. It'll be 28 what? Square centimeters. So the way you put that, I'm just going to put centimeters squared. So a tiny little 2 is actually what means squared. All right, because we're covering the amount of space inside of this shape, 2 numbers squared. All right, so in this case here, you want to make sure that you always have your answer. So if this was inches, you would say 28 inches squared. If this was yards, you would say 28 inches or 28 yards squared. All right, so you want to make sure that you have this key component when labeling your answer. Okay, now this is what it looks like on a grid. So you could either count all of these, and if I were to count, I know that this is 7, so 7, 14, 21, 28. All I'm doing is skip counting there. So that's how you find the area on a grid. Now let's talk about how to find the area of a rectangle. All right, so here's the area of a rectangle. I already have my units here. All right, so I have a shape, as we know, as a rectangle, and if I remember my formula correctly, that's length times width. So how long is my rectangle? Well, my rectangle is 36 inches. So it's going to be 36 inches times what? Times my width. My width is 5 inches. So it's going to be 36 times 5 inches. All right, and now this is a 2-digit by 1-digit number. I'm not too sure how to do that, but I do remember the strategy of an area model. So the way I'm going to do that is by simply solving this using an area model. So here's my area model box here. Okay. Now if I set this up correctly, if I decompose 30 and 6, that will be 30 plus 6. So I'll put my 30 up here, plus 6, put my 5 on the side. All right, so I'm going to do 5 times 30 here. If I cover up the 0, that's going to get me to 5 times 3, which is 15. Put that 0 right back in there. Now you're at 150. All right, now I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to be doing 6 times 5. All right, so if I skip count by fives, hold up 6 fingers. 1, 2, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 30. So now I'm going to do my last step, which is to add 150 plus 30. All right, 0 plus 0 is 0. And 5 plus 3 is 8. Bring down that 1. I know my answer in this case would be 36 times 5 is equal to 180 what? Inches squared. So this will be my answer here. So sometimes you will have big numbers like this, and you can always revert back to your strategy of using an area model, especially when you have a 2-digit by a 1-digit number. That's okay. That's why you've already learned that strategy there. All right, so let's take a look at our good friends up here, which are our word problems. We're going to try to get the light out the way there, but probably won't be able to move. That's fine. All right, so let's take a look. I'll read it for you. It says, one station will have couches and chairs for the kids to sit on, okay? In this station, they can play games. All right, there's our little bit of extra information. The question says, the station is 8 feet long and 10 feet wide. What is the area? All right, like I said, you want to remember those terms that come back to you, which is your formula. What are we looking for? Area. So every time you see the word area, I always want you to write length times width. I always want you to write length times width. So I'm going to be multiplying my length times my width. So it's 8 feet what? Long. So what's my length? 8. Okay, and what's my width? 10 feet what? Wide. You can see the W for width in there is there, and the letter for L, or length, is here. So it'll be 8 times 10, which in this case will be 80 feet squared. That would be my answer here. So you just want to make sure that you always have your units with your answers. Always make sure that when you see the word area, you write down length times width next to it, and then you multiply what it is that they're giving you. Now, it's always going to be a pretty complex understanding when it comes to ensuring that you're not just counting all these squares, but you are actually counting the width times the length. All right. Remember, we're not adding. Area is all about finding the amount of space inside of a shape, which in order to do that, you multiply. Hope this helps. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know.